Hi everyone, welcome to the first panel session of SCxSC Fintech Conference 2020. This session is called Navigating the New Normal, How has Fintech fared through Covid-19 crisis? Before I proceed, let me just announce some housekeeping rules. Please note that you can ask your questions that you may have using Slido. All you need to do is just to go to www.slido.com on your devices and key in the event code, which is SCxSC 2020. Or you can just click the Slido link on the chat box. Select on the relevant session and key in your questions in there. Hope that's clear enough for you and it's easy enough for you to navigate. So let's just ponder a moment, and I don't think anyone was prepared to face a pandemic of this magnitude and nature. Not only has it impacted lives, but it has also impacted livelihood. The pandemic not only has forced us to reorganize our daily lives, but also has accelerated significant changes, especially in business, where they have to reorganize their structures and models. As my chairman earlier said, the pandemic has forced every industry and sector to go digital in compliance with the physical restrictions that need to be complied with. Nevertheless, I think you can see that certain sectors have thrived, while certain sectors have been brought to a screeching halt because of the lockdowns and ongoing pandemic. Now, this begs the questions as to how has the fintech world fared compared to others? Fintech players are early adopters of digital business models, and to some or to many, they are in a better position to weather this COVID storm. So this is really a session for us to find out from the panelists today as to how our Malaysian fintechs have fared or have weathered this COVID storm. So you've seen earlier how snippets of the video, you can see how different fintech players have fared. Some have been forced to readjust credit assessment on the issues they admit on their platforms. Some have managed to reduce the kind of default rates and delinquencies on the issuers, which well done indeed, because they have managed to navigate through the earlier setbacks that they faced. Some have even gotten new investors to be on board their platforms. These are really silver linings that have emerged during such very difficult times. So now, joining me live today, we have three prominent fintech personalities representing different fintech businesses in Malaysia. I have with me, first of all, Mr. Kazumase Mise from Rakuten Trade, and followed by Shamsul Jafni of Pitchen, and last but not least, Shakir Hashim of Wahid Invest. Welcome, welcome all. It's really a chance for us to get up close and personal and perhaps gain better insights from a more interactive session. So if you have any questions, please post them on Slido as mentioned. But first, I want to take a moment to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves more fully before I start the conversation, starting with you, Mise-san, followed by Sam, and then Shakir. Over to you, Mise.
Okay, thank you very much, Azrina. Yeah, I'm Mise. I'm acting CEO of the Rakuten Trade. And as of the Rakuten Trade, and we start a business 2017 May, already over 3 years operation. We provide a Bursa Malaysia trading platform. Customer can trade listed stocks. And also the value proposition, one of the value proposition is the Rakuten Trade is the only one purely digital broker in Malaysia. We don't have a limit here. So people can open the account and trade everything online. That's our service, main value proposition. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. How about you, Sam?
Thanks, Azrina. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Sam. I am the co-founder and CEO of Pitchen. We're a recognized market operator that offers an equity crowdfunding platform that allows companies based in Malaysia to actually raise money from the public and from the public to then actually invest in what we think are growth stage companies. Thus far, since 2016, we've successfully assisted 64 companies to raise around 88 million plus ringgit Malaysia from 4,700 investors that makes up of majority of them individual investors, but also had a fair share of institutional investors that also joined in into this public fundraising for all these companies. So that in brief, Azrina, is about myself and Pitchin.
Okay, great. Shakir, over to you now.
Hi, Assalamualaikum, and very good morning to one and all. My name is Shakir Hashim, and I'm the head of Asia Pacific for Wahid Invest. Wahid Invest is Malaysia's first SC licensed Islamic digital investment manager, or some of you are more familiar with the more commercial term, which is robo-advisor. So essentially what we do is we provide a mobile application to help retail investors get advice into a diversified portfolio of investments. And it's a fully digital experience. You do not need any physical or offline interaction with anyone to start investing with Wahid. In short, yeah, that's Wahid Invest.
Okay, great, excellent introduction from all of you. So now, Shakir, I'll begin with you, as you are the new kid on the block compared to Pitchin and also Rakuten Trade. You've just received your license last year, right? Third, fourth quarter, and we've just started operations. I'm sure you have been ramping up your marketing efforts and building awareness on your new business, with target audiences and target investors. So when the pandemic really hit us hard, and when the MCO was announced, what was your immediate reaction to that?
Oh, very interesting question, Azrina. It's sort of like a lot of memories just passed by my mind right now.
Yeah.
So Wahid Invest Malaysia got licensed on 9th August 2019.
Yep.
And since we got licensed, we worked very hard to prep our launch. And we launched in Malaysia 27th October 2019. So if you recall the timeline, 27 October when we launched, essentially a few days later, it was already November. So we had 1 month of honeymoon period. And then after that, cases started sprouting up in China. It started to worry us a little bit, but it initially looked like it was a China thing and it hasn't really come over to the rest of the world, especially Malaysia. But by the time January and February and March happened, it got very serious in Malaysia. And that is also our first few months of launching. So from a management perspective, it was quite worrying. So we paused a lot of plans that we have. We had a very aggressive plan about with regards to going to market, but we took a step back and try and understand what's going on before we made certain actions. So there was definitely a bit of slowing down from us from a marketing and go-to-market perspective. But we're very, very grateful that actually throughout this COVID period, we've seen phenomenal growth that even our group didn't expect.
Right.
It surprised me, but I think what Malaysia just got for itself is actually a trial period for the whole of Malaysia for fintech companies. So because of the restricted movement, because of the inability to meet other human beings outside, without the ability to go to branches, people are forced into looking for digital solutions for their financial services needs. And it sort of provided a good impetus for people to start looking at fintechs like Rakuten Trade, Pitchin, and also Wahid, and also other fintech companies.
Right. How about you, Nisay-san? Rakuten being the first licensed digital broker, you had the digital business model far earlier than others had. Has being a fintech given you the advantage when dealing with the crisis? How has your business performed? Yeah.
Okay, the answer is yes. And this situation here give us a very positive impact on business. Yes, and maybe the same as the other company. Today the attend. We are the online broker, so the customer don't want to meet, don't have to meet the salesperson. So we have a lot of customer open the account and then trade. So that's why almost the number itself is almost 5 times and 6 times compared with the January. So also that states that means the people stay home. We understand we contribute the stay at home to prevent their COVID-19 situations.
Right. So there are record-breaking new account openings during COVID period, right? I heard you right.
Correct.
And these are new investors, or they are fairly, seasoned investors that have opened up?
Actually, the trend is almost the same as before COVID-19. A lot of young investors, especially before COVID, coming into our trading platform and then trade.
Interesting observations. How about you, Sam? We've seen the ECF numbers this year. It has been growing steadily, despite the pandemic. But come March, when we had to go through the lockdown, what was playing in your mind at that point in time? I'm sure you had issuers being, lined up in the pipeline, being admitted to your platform. So how was the situation back then?
Yeah, so right now, if you look back, right, so when Pitching was first set up, we always wanted to position ourselves as a fintech company, therefore, fully relying on technology to actually grow the company. But as we've seen throughout the years, especially in Malaysia, despite that, and everyone knows this, pre-COVID-19, a lot of the activities by Pitching was done physically. Yeah, we had physical presentations, physical meetings, physical meetups between potential investors and companies. So that was the business plan from the word go when we started. It's just that the trading or the buying or the selling, the investing or the fundraising was done on the internet. But any other activities was done physically, yeah?
Right.
So early February, we did our Pitching 2019 report. We told the general public that this year we're going to hit 36 million ringgit, 13 million ringgit more than what we did in 2019. A few weeks after that, the announcement of the government that the country will now go on lockdown, right? So obviously all of us were not prepared. We did not know how to react to that particular news because whatever plans we had in terms of our road shows, meetings and whatnot was all shelved, right? We couldn't do anything and we didn't know how long this lockdown would be. And as we know, it actually entered into at least 3 months of lockdown, yeah? Now, what was interesting, Azrina, is that when the lockdown was announced, we had a number of a number of companies already lined up. In fact, companies were already live during that time, right? And we could sense the fear of these companies, because like us, they too don't know any other thing in terms of a strategy apart from meeting investors face to face. Now, Malaysian investors, they like to talk to you, to actually ask you questions, see how we react, see eye to eye and all that, right?
Yeah.
So when the lockdown happened, a lot of those plans had to be shelved, had to be changed. And one thing which we realized is that what happened after the lockdown was announced was that we saw that the technology, the embracement of this technology was done more quicker than what we thought, right?
Right.
In fact, on hindsight, like Rakuten and also Wahid, we've seen record-breaking fundraising during the lockdown, right? Because more people were more attuned and focused towards watching the companies presenting online. So we had record-breaking numbers when people were stuck at home watching the videos. They were fully focused, and we actually saw people pledging right after they actually watched those particular presentations on video. So for us, it has worked very, very well. In fact, we saw that the adoption of technology, especially by investors, has actually grew faster and higher compared to pre-COVID-19 situations.
Right. And these new investors in front of your telly, watching in front of the computer or devices, watching all these pitching sessions, are they new investors, like new in the pool of investors that you have, or how do you...
So it's a mix. But I think we actually managed to onboard newer investors, especially those outside of KL. Right? We always find that onboarding investors outside of KL was a bit more difficult because we had to spend money, spend time, moving from one city to another. We did that from 2016 to 2019, and it was tough. What happened after the lockdown was that I think the message was shared much more further than what we thought, and that's why we saw people basically from around Malaysia coming on board. And that's why we actually had to do not just on Zoom. We thought we just want to do on Zoom and not stream it on Facebook. We had to open up both platforms to allow more people to come in, because Zoom, as we all know, had a limit in terms of the number of people. So yeah, it was interesting. At the same time, we were very happy with what we saw during the lockdown, actually.
So, in relation to that, Sam, if I can take one of the questions from on Slido, since it's quite related to the topic that we have at hand.
We've got questions already. Cool. Right.
Yes. You know, to Sam, how are MSME issuers, especially those who have raised on your platform, coping with the pandemic, right? Have any closed shop? How does the pandemic affect due diligence and valuation of new issuers? I think that's very
it is. Actually. So I'll answer the first questions, right? So again, when the pandemic happened, I think no one was ready. I think both Shakir and also mentioned that all of us were not ready. Some of us thrived because our business was basically on the internet. So those issuers or MSMEs that actually were more brick and mortar in terms of business, they had nowhere to run, right? They obviously felt the full brunt of the global pandemic. When you have actually a business which is related to physical presence, and if you can't do it for the next 3 months, then obviously you will be facing a lot of challenges and difficulty. So the same thing happened with a lot of those companies that were brick and mortar in nature. There was one company which I think everyone knows. They operate a locker style business. You can find their lockers in shopping complexes, in condominiums. Obviously, they were dependent on people either leaving their laundry, ordering e-commerce, and then passing it to those lockers. So obviously, when this pandemic happened, their business plan was hit quite bad. Now, after the RMCO was announced, I think there was a moment when the company was contemplating shutting down operations at all, right? We had a meeting with the founders. We asked him whether there is a plan B, whether we could salvage anything to ensure that the business can then have a second life. I think the founder did whatever any founder would have to do. He was very open with his shareholders. I still remember us drafting the email to all the shareholders, informing them what the company is going through and what may happen if we don't find a silver lining to this. And I think everyone was prepared that this company will be shut down. Fortunately for everyone, I think the founder and the team find ways to manage the situation. In fact, there is a great story after this, because eventually he found another investor that was willing to invest in the company and gave them the second life. And therefore, all the investors, I suppose, together with some of us, signed a huge relief that the company is still now going strong. There is one company whose business model dependent on selling tickets to concerts, football tickets, sports. We all know what happens, right? Obviously, no one can go to any concerts, neither are there football fans around. And again, even after the RMCO, they still can't do their business, right? So those companies, obviously, they are now facing a tough situation. They are currently dormant. I know they are trying to find other ways to survive, but things does not look very good for them. That's the reality of it, right? So digital company, on the other hand, we call Azrina, are doing fantastically well, right? The likes of a Signature Market, they're doing crazy numbers during MCO. People are stuck. What do people want to eat? People want to eat healthy nuts because they want to watch those presentations on Pitchin, right? And Oxwhite, everyone in Malaysia, they know Oxwhite. They sell white clothes, clothing. They're a uniquely e-commerce company. They raised just before the new year in 2020. Right now, from what we know, after speaking to CK during our last meeting with him, the numbers are also off the roof, yeah? And they're doing well. So to basically answer those traditional companies, because of the lockdown, obviously we know what's happening with them. Those digital companies, right? I think just like Pitchin, just like all of us here, we saw our business model move quicker than what we thought, right? In a way, this particular pandemic has actually helped us to get our base of audience to embrace technology much more faster than we thought they could.
I think, I'm sure Rakuten Trade and Wahid agrees with that statement, I'm sure. And that falls nicely to the next question that I'm going to take from the poll, actually. This is about the issue of connectivity, right? Someone was asking, do you think with all the kind of digital transactions happening, everybody wants to do everything, meetings and all virtually, do you think Malaysia's current connectivity infrastructure is sufficient to support the rapid development in fintech? What's your views? Shakir, you want to have a go at answering this question?
Sure. I'm not too sure whether Malaysia has achieved like sort of 100% connectivity throughout the whole country. But what we've seen from our experience launching the last 11 months or so, there is a very good spread, a very equal spread between clients coming from the urban areas and also from non-urban areas. Right. So just as a number that I can share is that more than half of our clients are actually coming outside of KL and Selangor, which we totally did not expect because we thought robo-advisors, fintech, something digital is going to be a pretty much urban thing in the first 1-2 years. But because of connectivity, I would guess, and also because of the COVID situation, people all over Malaysia, not just in KL Selangor, were looking for digital solutions in their lives, not just for financial services, but for many other services that they utilize. And from that anecdote that I can share, I think connectivity is not the main issue for financial inclusion in Malaysia. I think it is there. It's sufficient for the adoption of financial technology.
Right, right. Can you perhaps give us some color as to, examples where you see people using services like digital investment management, like you from Wahid point of view, to kind of address the needs that they have during the lockdown period?
Yeah, so for Wahid, people use us to invest part of their income. So as we saw, pretty much there were quite a lot of layoffs, but there are also a lot of people who actually retain their jobs, albeit with a new way of life. They earn the same amount of salary, but they don't go out to the cinemas. They don't go out to restaurants as much. People stay at home. They cook their own food. A lot of the ancillary expenses were not happening. So what happened then was that, for most people, there were some additional disposable income at hand. And I think some of those actually went to fintech platforms like us,
Yep.
where people wanted to use that extra amount of money, especially the moratorium, that also added liquidity into people's lives.
Right.
And with the additional liquidity, they wanted to grow their money. And then I believe the fintech companies in Malaysia who are properly licensed and regulated probably were beneficiaries to this additional liquidity in people's lives.
Right.
So I think that was one angle as to where digital financial services sort of like played into at this point of time.
Yeah, and there is a follow-up question on that. How are all of you coping with the sudden increase in online traffic due to MCO? How about Rakuten Trade taking this question? I'm sure there is a surge of people opening accounts, trading on your platform. Mise-san, how do you cope with it?
Yes, and before the COVID-19, before the March, we already planned the system enhancement plan. Yeah, but also that we expect that our forecast is gradually going to increase the customer base. But after March, spike rapidly. That we immediately need the system enhancement, especially the server. Yes, and also the operation point of view, a lot of customers coming into our platform. In that, we accelerate to open the account. So yeah, in that case, our account opening operation system is kind of using the eKYC. So that's why we cope with the huge spike of the customer coming in.
Yeah, I'm sure. And while we're at the topic of investments and investor behavior, I thought, can you just add some color to who are your investors, Mise-san, during especially during the surge of retail participation into your platform, and what are the investors looking for? Who are your main investors?
Oh, okay. The reason is very simple. We think about why the customer opened the account. Because of the stock market is very spike. For example, the health-related share, the pandemic-related share I mentioned. The people want to trade such kind of the shares. That's why the people coming into our trading platform and they open the account and they trade. Especially as I mentioned, the cross opening speech, the customer itself is 80% of them is below 40s.
Yeah,
I think that's student and the business person. Yeah.
So younger investors, is that the same in Wahid as well as in Pitchin? Are there fairly younger investors participating on your platforms? Shakir?
Yeah, pretty much the same. The average age of our clients are 28 years old. No distinction between urban, non-urban, is fairly equal. Right. In terms of income group, Wahid is quite a product for almost everyone. So we have people from the upper ranks of B40, M40, and some of T20. So we cut across the middle of the mass market. So we've seen a fair share of clients from all walks of lives.
Yeah. So back to you, Sam, knowing that, investors are very opportunistic, the market is hot, they are going into online brokerage, digital investment management. How about investors on your platform? Because the kind of investments that you have is more long-term in nature, right?
It is.
So are you attracting a different kind of investors, or are they the same?
I think we're attracting more or less the same. I think at least from what we observe, some of those investors, especially young investors, are diversifying their investment portfolio.
Right.
I can attest to this because speaking to those people that actually invest in companies on our platform, and again, echoing what Shakir mentioned just now, there's been a bit of liquidity in the market. Some of these folks have an annual budget to actually travel either locally or internationally, but because of the travel ban, you suddenly have 10,000, 20,000 ringgit around, which has been put aside, but now can't be used. And I've had interesting conversations with some of these investors asking me where to put their money, right? And obviously we've been asking them to look at those companies raising money on Pitchin. Some of these companies we think are really, really good companies, long-term play, yeah. But if you diversify that with doing robo-advisory, stock investing, then you could actually have a good portfolio on your hand. And some of them actually have parked their money long term on companies raising on equity crowdfunding. So that has been quite interesting in the sense that with this particular what they call challenge that the whole global economy is facing, I think a lot of people are looking at opportunities which they've not even looked at prior to this. I don't want to sound like I'm all for this global pandemic, yeah, but I think in days like this, where you see a lot of people looking at several alternatives for them to actually grow their money, invest their money in. So yeah, so we've been getting positive feedback at least from investors who's looking into deals which they can park their money in.
Excellent, excellent. So I have two questions that is related, and it's to Shakir and also to Mrs. San. To Wahid, do you have plans in venturing into offering brokerage services similar like Rakuten Trade? and to Mrs. San, to Rakuten Trade, do you have plans to offer Rakuten Trade product in end-to-end Islamic product like Wahid? So first to you, Shakir. How do you handle this? I think, fintech players are all about reinventing themselves, diversifying their products and services. What's your views on issues like that or questions like that?
That's a very interesting question. I just got to know Mr. San. Don't worry, we're not going to compete anytime soon. Well, Wahid Invest Malaysia is part of a group, right? And we're specializing in digital investments. And I think there is still a lot to do in the investment space. We are barely scratching the surface.
Right.
And I think the trajectory that we're going is going to go deeper into investments and savings rather than going into brokerages, because I think it's a very different business model. Even though it sounds similar, it requires different technology stack, it requires different specialties, different manpower. So I think I'll stop there and I pass on to Mr. San to take on the conversation.
Mr. San, any views? Do you plan to offer Islamic products on your platform?
For us and every time since business launch, we hear the customer's request. The ones that customer request, and we provide the enhanced service. For example, we provide the first and the business launch, we the cash up front, and then next it's based on the customer request. So the Islamic one, sorry about that. I don't hear any but in the future, definitely.
Thank you very much for your response. I think this is where I think fintech is all about hearing to the needs of your customers, your investors. Very intuitive to the customer's needs, and from my conversations even with other fintech players, they grow with their investors. So as you grow with your investors, you never know, the sky's the limit, and if your investors do need something and do feel there is value add in catering to in offering bespoke products to them, you never know what the future lies. So now with all that, let's talk about if you had a time machine, right? If you could turn back the clock and you knew this kind of pandemic is going to be going to come on you hard, what would you change, if any, in relation to your business model, in relation to how you assess certain things? How about you, Sam? Would you want to take this question first?
Yeah, first. Yeah. I'll do that first. I think, as Rina, again, hindsight is always 20/20, right? And I've always told my team and ourselves and myself is that what happened during this global pandemic in terms of the responses from companies, responses from investors is what really we want this particular space to be, which is purely technology, purely digital. right?
Right.
I think during the early days of ECF, I think a lot of effort, money was spent in terms of traveling from states to state. We even gone as far as Kota Kinabalu and Kuching, yeah, and all that for a startup like Pitchin, it really pulls us in terms of cost and resources. And that's why I was waiting for the day that we don't really have to do all this and everything can just be purely technology. And that's why companies like fintech companies like us are built for. I only see positives. I'm sorry, but I just see positives coming out of this global pandemic. It has quickened the pace in terms of digital, the people embracing digital solutions. And I think this has only worked better for us at Pitchin. Again, I just want to share some numbers. We hit our target for 2020 late September, right?
Right.
And we have one more quarter to go. And I think we'll do very, very well during this last quarter. I think we would hit our 100 million ringgit of fundraise also by the end of this quarter. And I think, and you've seen this, Azrina, you check our numbers, it has been
Yes,
pushing
Wow.
ever since what do you call it, the MCO was announced. So this is, for us, really, this is really good, right? I hope that after this, as we go back to what we knew, we don't really have to spend more time on the road. I think right now, we hope people are fairly familiar and comfortable in terms of just going to the site, watching us on video, then deciding whether or not they want to invest in these companies or not. Yeah.
Right. I think, Sam, I've seen you from back in 2014 when you first started coming to us, and at that point in time you were
I was a young
running
man
your
then.
young, very young man. You're running your reward crowdfunding, and at that point in time, a lot of people were skeptical about equity crowdfunding, and just look at how the industry has grown, and it has emerged strong despite the pandemic. So
That's
well
right.
done for the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And how about you, Shakir? Would you do anything differently? Would you change your marketing strategy? How would you face? What would you do differently if you knew this crisis was coming?
Oh, this is such an interesting question. I thought hard about it. I think I wouldn't change much. It worked for us. What we did worked for us. Most of our clients are organic. More than half of our clients are organic clients, meaning they see us from somewhere and then they came to us without us paying any money to acquire them. The other half are from our referral program. So we have a referral program for existing clients. And that worked, that fueled growth. And that is one of the better forms of marketing early on in a product life cycle, because you want sort of like actual real life testimonials. You want word of mouth to go out there. And I think we fueled that quite extensively in the last 11 months of being in Malaysia. But if I could change anything, it would be to press on a lot more on education earlier on when we were launching, because when there is a period of calamity or in this health crisis that we face, the worst that we expected happened. So in March, April, there was a market correction that came really soon, right? So imagine you were onboarded in January. In March, you had to see like a 20% decline on your portfolios. And most people weren't exposed to that eventuality that early on. So if I could do anything different, I would spend a bit more time and effort back then when we were launching to talk about longer term investing, the longer time horizons of the investments that are being made, so that people will be more calm during these periods. That would be the only thing. Yeah.
How about you, Mrs. San, your investors, and in what sort of things that you would do differently, although you have performed well during the COVID?
If I come back to the before COVID-19, the March, yes, I would try to focusing on much more education. Same as because during after March, the stock market spike, in that case, customer buy some particular shares.
Mm.
The stockbroker is a mission itself, not only providing the trading platform, but also providing the education for the asset building in the future. So before March, we focus on the face-to-face the kind of the event. But after COVID-19 March, we couldn't provide the very efficient webinars. So the August, we did one webinar to our client. Roughly the 5,000 clients and apply to our webinar, and so there are a lot of the people or currently looking for what to buy next for the future their asset growing. So I would try to focus on the much more education from now via online basis.
Yeah, I think, yes, I do agree with all of you. Investor education is key, especially in times like this when, you know, a lot of things are being done, transacted digitally. There are also opportunities for people to scam, right? And I'm sure all of you have been impacted by it. So if, you know, the key is to kind of push for investor education and ensuring that they only kind of invest in platforms that are regulated, registered, and if in doubt, they have to check with the regulators, be it Bank Negara or Securities Commission, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with the current business performance, which seems to be very positive for all of you, do you think it will be sustainable even after when this crisis, I don't know when it will subside, but what do you think? Sam, do you think?
Yeah, we're hopeful. We're most hopeful that this is not a one-off. Moving forward to 2021, again in the last 3 months of 2020, we forecast good numbers, not just in terms of the fundraising, but also new investors coming on board to the platform. We hope to sustain this coming into 2021. I think there will probably be a slight correction, I suppose. People coming out from a particular, what they call, global pandemic will probably want to sit back and ponder a bit during the first few months of 2021, I suppose. So it will be, I reckon it'll be quite tough to maintain this, especially if things were to go back to what people may think as the previous normal. But I think with the education, what they call intervention that we've done during the last few months, especially during the lockdown, now hopefully we've prepared some of these investors to go forward with their investments come next year. What we're happy about what we've done for the past few months is that we've managed to actually onboard new investors, people that have not looked at ECF even before this. So we're hoping that they will continue to invest some of this money into the companies that will be fundraising in 2021. As I've mentioned this before, Azrina, I think for equity crowdfunding, not just at Pitchin, but also other companies, I think the funnel of companies who are looking to raise money, I think all of us have a fair share, healthy number of people who are looking to raise funding. So that's good news for us. We have customers and clients waiting. What we want to do on board is to onboard more investors, but also to educate them about what they're getting themselves into. And I believe, and based on what we've seen in terms of the evidence, is that once they're educated in terms of the investment that they're doing, I think that's where I think they will have more confidence into investing in companies that we curate on our own platforms.
Yeah, and with a kind of long-term patient capital that equity crowdfunding is all about now, with the emergence of more and more people offering secondary market, I think that can.
I was about to say that, right? So that's the missing link that we need right now. We've submitted our proposals for that. Hopefully, we'll get the OKs soon. from the Securities Commission. And I think once we have that, right, then you will see this more vibrant market happening, not just people looking to invest in companies, but also people that may have missed the chance of investing in, say, a company like Signature Market and what they're doing right now in terms of numbers. I think there will be a lot of people who may want a piece of Signature Market or piece of Oxwhite or piece of Policy Street after missing the ECF round. So we're hopeful for that to actually push the market ahead.
Yeah. And this is the evolution that is so powerful about the capital market. It's very dynamic. And I'm sure it will take time for, maybe 1 to 2 years for things to kind of come to the level that you want. But it is the beginning, and we'll see further developments on that part, I'm sure.
Thanks.
How about Shakir and Miss? How about the current business performance? Is it sustainable? How do you see yourself moving forward in the future?
I think in the immediate future, I think there's a bit of uncertainty because of the end of the moratorium. That affects directly the topic that we talked about previously, which is the liquidity that could have been one of the reasons that fueled the increased volumes in fintech companies the past few months. So I think in the immediate future, there's going to be a bit of uncertainty, maybe a bit of a slowdown in terms of transaction volumes. But I'm very bullish long term because I think because of the MCO, because of COVID, many Malaysians have tasted fintech for the first time. And I think I have trust that my fintech peers also serve their clients very well, provided a delightful experience to clients, and people will talk about it. And then the market is starting to realize that fintechs are giving a run for the money to the incumbents because, of course, the digital experience, the quality of service is almost the same, if not better than what is already out there. And thirdly, the immense cost savings that they get when they use a fintech solution. So all these three factors, Malaysians have tasted it. I think more and more Malaysians will use it. And I'm very bullish long term on the fintech landscape.
Nise-san, your thoughts on this? Is the current business performance sustainable?
Okay, sustainable, not sustainable. But first of all, we cannot predict in the future the market, volatile, not volatile, another spike coming, keep stable. But as I mentioned, our mission, we as an online stockbroker, we keep providing the better service to increase the customer experience, also as well as to support the customer asset building, for example, education. So for my thought, as long as we can provide a better customer experience and education, we can sustain the business.
Very powerful statement from you there, Mr. San, and I'm sure everyone agrees about that, about equipping your investors with the right tools to invest in the right kind of investments and knowing that usually more often than not, it's for the long term, right? So I think I'll try to, we have about probably 7 minutes left. I'll just pick up some of the questions that the audience have posted. Okay, to everyone. So this question applies to everyone. What challenges do you face in performing KYC fully online? How do you make sure it matches the traditional standards for identity verification? So I think all of you have end-to-end kind of online, kind of verification. I mean, depending, but for Pitchin, I think for your businesses, I'm sure you have to do your duty, which is offline and all that. So how would you, for example, Rakuten Trade, are there any challenges when you perform the KYC fully online?
Yes, and actually the account opening process is already adapted some of the KYC system. But during the COVID-19 period, a lot of people are coming in. So in that case, sometimes at the day, usually our service level is within the 2 hours, customer can get their password. But during the COVID-19 period, maybe 1 day, 2 day delayed. Much more the back office operation some challenges. So the currently the one account, for example, the minute operation processing time. But to enhance some of the, as I mentioned, same as the customer experience, the user experience, operation person user experience. So the changing the UI, UX, we can reduce the time. In that case, we can meet the service level or to the end user within the 2 minutes, within the 2 hours, even though the spike, another spike coming.
Shakir, about your eKYC, do you face any challenges with the, with surge of investors coming in, or it's all right?
I think the challenge wasn't during COVID. The challenge for us was when we launched initially, because we couldn't really predict how many people were coming in. Because we take a dual approach to eKYC. Of course, there's an E side, which is automated, but as an added layer of safety for our company, we also have human intervention in the KYC process. So I think when we launched, there was quite a huge support for our product, and we solved it before COVID. So we solved the KYC bottleneck before COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we didn't have any KYC problems or challenges. It was resolved last year when we initially launched.
Right. For you, Sam?
Yeah, so for us, we had challenges in terms of issuers. Some of these issuers are predominantly brick and mortar. So in those issuers, what we normally do, even before this, is that we visit their premise to ensure it's a real store, it's an actual business. Those business we had to key IV until the lockdown was finished. But the other thing, Azrina, that actually helped us during this particular lockdown was that in our dealings with our trust account banker, right? So pre-COVID-19, everything has to be physical, CTC chop, hand delivered, right? And my guy had to go to the bank physically every day to hand deliver every single account. COVID happened, and suddenly the banks became wiser, and they said, no need, just give us digital soft copies. I'm like, what? We could have done that even before that, right? So hopefully, moving forward, they won't change this. Yes. It's helping us and quicken the whole process. That was a huge headache pre-COVID-19, just physically going to the bank every single time, right? So if I don't know whether they're watching, but let's keep on doing that. So we're happy. But in terms of the investors, it's the same thing that we're doing right now. It has worked very well. The only thing which is a challenge, if you're a brick and mortar company, we probably need to KIV you, and that's what we did for several companies. Now, since RMCO, we've been able to go out there and meet the companies and whatnot. But one thing which we love to see still is the banks allowing us to send those digital soft copies of the documents. Yep.
So you're doing your pitch now, right? Pitching.
Yes, I can. Right.
So I think this whole session has been very enlightening, and I think the key takeaways that we could gather from the session is the strength of fintech, how it manages to even thrive in such uncertain times. Of course, initially the investors were uncertain, but after getting to knowing that things are improving, they get back to their normal routine, and they would invest where they feel it's relevant and where they feel it's suitable for their investments. Yep. Investor education is key. The push for those who have not embraced digital themselves. But as fintech players, what are your aspirations moving forward? How would you like to see fintech emerge from the current crisis? Is it really a case of a hopeless end, or is it more an endless hope for fintech players? Just a one-liner or just a short one. Sam, what would you think? How will fintech emerge from this?
Right. I think hopefully people will see that what do you call backing or using fintech startups or companies like us will make you realize that it will make your life easier. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing about using technology on top of the financial structure, right? Easier access, easy access to not just information, but also opportunities.
Right.
And also to actually aggregate everyone. You have one common platform that gives everyone the same kind of information that you need to do in terms of investing, also fundraising. That's my hope. Moving forward from this, I think, as I mentioned, this particular pandemic has quickened that adoption. Let's move on stronger after this.
Shakir?
Yeah, I think the consumers are smart, right? Everyone's looking for better, cheaper, faster. And most of the time, the answer is fintech when it comes to those three things. So that said, from a product perspective, I think fintech has the advantage against incumbents. But the challenge that all fintechs have to go through is to bring itself in front of people and convince them, which is building trust. And building trust takes time. And that is the biggest challenge of fintech companies. But I think it only takes one fintech to mess up, and it will cause an industry level worry from the consumers towards fintech companies. So I put some trust in all of us to deliver to our promises and keep high standards of compliance and operations, because the market is huge and is really untapped, and people want better, cheaper, faster, and we are the only ones providing it. So I'm hopeful, but at the same time very cautious.
All right. And last but not least, Mr. San, your thoughts on this? Your comments.
Fintech in the future. Yes, my thought is why use fintech? Because we have to meet the customer high expectations. So we always hear the voice from the customer to meet the better experience, to provide a better experience to the client. We learn a lot of fintech from now on, and and then in the future, definitely much more better service we provide to the end users.
So thank you very much, everyone, for such powerful message and very enlightening feedback. Stay tuned for the rest. Stay tuned for the next session. We have the Brave New World, conceptualizing the future of modern financial architecture at 11 a.m. So do remember that you can utilize the networking features on the Brella platform to interact with other participants. Thank you so much, Ms. San. Thank you, Shakir. Thank you, Sam. It was indeed a privilege to moderate all of you. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope all of you have enjoyed the session. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.